Beis. We begin the Gemara today towards the bottom of Beis Amud Beis, 3 lines from the bottom. This is the Gemara here brought, as you have many times in the Gemara, it brings a statement of one Ameira, and then it brings other things that he said, even though it's not necessarily connected. So here's another statement that he said. Mansepach. These 4 letters or 5 letters of Mansepach. These are the letters in Aleph Beis that have it the way it's written in the middle of the word and the way it's written at the end of the word in a different shape. Tzoifim Omrum. So the Nevi'im are the ones that said them. They were the ones that created these letters, that you should write it in the end of the word one way and the middle of the words in a different way. Fragt the Gemara, how could that be? V'tizbera, could this be true? V'ksiv, there's a pasuk that says, Eile ha-mitzvahs. This is the end of Chumash Vayikra, and there it says, Eila mitzvahs ha-shetziv Hashem ha-shmosh b'nei Yisrael b'har Sinai. So what do we learn from there? She'ein navi rashoy l'chadish davar meyata. From after Har Sinai, no prophet is not allowed to make any new mitzvahs or any new halachas. So over here, if you're going to say that these prophets were machadish these letters, so what does that mean? That they came and said that in the Torah, when you're going to write the letters at the end of the words, it shouldn't be the way it's written in the middle of the word. It should be like it's in the end, a different letter. And if you don't write it that way, the Sefer Torah would be possible. So they're changing a halacha and how the Sefer Torah has to be written. How could they do this? V'yait, another question. How could you say that the letters, and the Gemara here understands that this refers to the letters at the end of the word, that they were machadish? But how could that be? Rav Chisda said regarding the luchais, mem v'samach, the mem and the samach shebeluchais that are in the luchais, b'nes hayoimden. They were there in the luchais with a miracle. Why is that? Because as Rashi brings, the letters in the luchais were engraved through and through from one side to the other. So when you have the mem and the samach, and we're talking here now about the mem and the samach, well, the mem at the end of the word in every samach, so then the middle has to be suspended in midair. Right? It's the mem and the samach is all around cut out, and then in the middle it's suspended. So what do we see from this? That this mem, which is one of these letters of the Mansepach, that's in the end of the word, was already there in the luchais. It's not something that the Nevi'im decided and made up at a certain point. So the one answers in. Yes, so this is true. Mahave havu. Those letters were there in the luchais. As we see, or we must say that all of these letters, Mansepach, were already there before. Both the letters of the middle of the word and the letters of the end of the word. However, what people did not know is Hai b'emtza teva and V'hai b'seif teva. Which one is in the middle of the word and which one is at the end of the word. They weren't sure where they belong. Right? There's the mem that we call the shlos mem at the end and the regular mem in the middle, or maybe the other way around. They didn't know. Vasu tzaifim, and these neviim came, and v'tiknu, and the tikinu, that is, and they established, and that psuchin be'emtza, the open mem and the open letters go in the middle of the word, and stumin be'emtza teva and stumin b'seif teva, and the closed mem goes at the end of the word. So that's what they came and established. So this was unknown. What belongs where? Mefarshim ask over here the obvious question. We just mentioned the luchais. So why couldn't they go and look inside the luchais? So it's a very big question. The Rashba here says that it must be that this whole story of the Tzoifim, that they came and were machadish this, was later on, towards the end of the first Beis HaMikdash, after the Arein was already hidden underground. Or according to some opinions, it was taken into Galus already, before the Churban. So they didn't have the Luchas anymore. So this story here did not happen earlier on. It happened a much later time when they didn't have it available anymore. But other Rishonim do say that it happened earlier on. But I don't know, for some reason, they did not see it in the Luchas. I'm not sure why. Kopanim. So that's not. But the Gemara doesn't stop here. The Gemara continues and asks, Saif, the question still remains, going back again to the same point, Eila mitzvahs, she'ein navi asid l'chadish davar meyata. A navi is not allowed to be mechadish anything. So even the fact that you have these letters, and you don't know which letter belongs where, a navi can't just come and decide that this letter that the letter belongs in the end, and this letter belongs in the middle. Not only can a navi not come and be mechadish new letters that were non-existent before, even if there were those letters, and we don't know which one goes where, a navi can't come and be mechadish and decide which letter is going to go where. According to some of Farshim, what the Gemara is actually saying is that the Gemara was thinking that the answer was that, yeah, there were 2 types of mems, there were 2 types of nuns, but it was never given me Sinai which one belongs where. It was never given me Sinai. Now, the Nevi'im came and decided that the closed letter should be at the end and the open letter should be in the middle. So that's also a chiddush in the location of where the letters go. That's the Nevi'im being mechadish that. How could they do this? So the Gemara answers, Elo, so that we must say, Shakchum v'chazr v'yastam. Really, Mi Sinai, it was already given both types of letters. And not only that, even the location of where the letters belong, middle of the word or the end of the word, was also already given Mi Sinai. But at a certain point it was forgotten. And the Nevi'im came along and they were miyasa this again. They reminded Yidden of what belongs where. The emphasis, this is a very difficult Gemara to understand because these letters, they have in everything. It's not just you have it in every Sefer Torah, you have it in every Tefillin, in every mezuzah. So you see how it's written and where the letters, you have the mem in the middle of the word, chsav tom, you have a mem at the end of the word, and you have mezuzahs, the mem at the beginning of the word. So what happened? They lost all of the tefillin and all of the mezuzahs, and they forgot this. How could you forget such a thing? It's a very big question. Of course, just the only pshat I saw is that some of Farshim say that there was a certain time period in Klal Yisrael where the tefillin, the Sefer Torah, and the mezuzahs were not written with the ksav ashuri, with the ksav that we write today. They wrote it with ksav ivri, with a different type of letters, ancient letters that they used to write, not with these letters that we know today, and therefore it got forgotten. Others say when they went down into Golus, so they started writing differently for different reasons. Upon him, it's a hard thing to understand. What happened over here, Shokchum? They forgot these letters. Like they forgot the Lahavdil. You forget the ABC at a certain point. How does such a thing happen? All literature gets upon him, but that's what the Gemara says here. The Gemara says, "Vayte v'am Rab Yirmiyah v'iteimer Rab Chiya bar Abba Targum shel Torah." The Targum we have on the Torah, who wrote it? Onkelis Ager Amrai. Onkelis Ager is the one that said this Targum, Mipi Rabbi Eliezer v'Rabbi Yeshua, and he learned it from Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua. Targum Shel Nevi'im, the Targum of Navi. Yonasan ben Azil Amrai. Yonasan ben Azil said it, Mipi Chagi Zachariah uMalachi, from Chagi Zachariah Malachi. So this doesn't mean that Yonasan ben Azil learned it directly from Chagi Zachariah Malachi. He was in a much later generation. Yonasan ben Azil was in the times at the end of the second Beis HaMikdash, or maybe even after that. He was a Tana. And Chagi Zachariah Malachi was much earlier, but it means that he learned it from his rabbis, which got it as a tradition from Chagi Zachariah Malachi. And now the Gemara says also regarding the Targum of Yonasan ben Azil, V'nizdaza Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael trembled. Arba meis parsa al arba meis parsa, 400 parsa by 400 parsa, which is the size of all of Eretz Yisrael, when Yonasan ben Azil was Metargim Navi. And Yatzas a Baskal v'amr, and a Baskal came out and said, Mi hu zeh shegilus sasarai levnei adam. Who is this individual that has revealed my secrets to people? When he was Metargim, the Navi. Amad Yonasan ben Azil al raglov, Yonasan ben Azil got up on his feet, and Vamai said, Ani hu shegilisi sisrecha levnei adam. I am the one that revealed your secrets to people. And he said like this, Galav yadua lefanecha. It's open and known to you. I'm not doing this for my honor, not for the honor of my father. I did this for the honor, for your honor, for the Eibishter's honor. And what's the honor of the Eibishter? By being Metargim Navi. So there shouldn't be arguments amongst Yidden. Apparently, until that point, that Ashir says, there were all these psukim, and there were big arguments how to explain these psukim. So in order to take away all these arguments, he was Metargim the Torah. That's what they used to fight about, these kind of things. So this took away the machlokes b'Yisrael. V'oi, now the Gemara goes further. Bikish legaloi targum shel ksuvim. He wanted to also translate ksuvim as well. Yatzas Abaska v'amra. So Abaska came out and said, Loi dayach. V'amra loi, and said to him, dayach. Enough. The fact that you were metargim the Navi. You can't be metargim the ksuvim. And why not? My time, mishum de isbei kates Mashiach. Because in ksuvim, one of the svarim of ksuvim is Daniel, and in Daniel you have the kates of when Mashiach will come. And that the Eibishter did not want should be translated and explained. Okay, till there's the story about the Targum. Now the Gemara goes back regarding... Yeah, there is. We do have Targum Yonasan on Chumash. I did see that some say that the Targum on Yonasan that we have on Chumash is not really Targum Yonasan, it's Targum Yerushalmi. But I believe we actually have both, Targum Yerushalmi, Targum Yonasan, and Targum Onkelis, 3 Targumim on the Chumash. Yeah, but the Gemara here is not saying that Yonasan was not Metargum the Chumash, but he was also Metargum the Navi. So that was his, which Onkelis was not. So now the Gemara goes back. The Targum shel Torah, the Targum of the Torah, Onkelis Ager Amrei? Is Onkelis Ager the one that translated Torah? What's the meaning of the pasuk that it says? And this is in the Nehemiah, the beginning of the building of the second Beis Hamikdash. So it says, Vayikru b'sefer Torah salakim. They read in the Sefer Torah. Mefayrash explained. The same seichel, they put their mind to it. Vayavinu b'mikra, and they understood what they read. So the Gemara explains what this pasuk is saying. How do they learn? Vayikru b'sefer Torah salakim means ze mikra. They read the psukim. When it says mefayrish, that they explained it, what does this refer to? Zeh targum. That refers to the fact that they had the targum, the translation of the Torah. And the same seichel, when they put their minds to understanding this, elu psukim. This means that they knew exactly where to divide the psukim. What's the end of a pasuk? Va'yavinu b'mikra. What does this mean? Elu piskei taimim. This refers to the taimei mikra, the tunes, the trop, way we call it today. Others say Elo HaMesairis. This refers to the Messiah of how to read the words. You don't have the pronunciation and the Nekudis and the Torah. This refers to the Messiah of how to read the words. So what do we see here? They had the Targum of the Torah in the beginning of the second Beis Hamikdash. Onkelos was much later than that. So the Gemara says, Shakchum v'chazra v'yastam. They had it already before, but it was forgotten, and he brought it back again. Frag the Gemara, not going back to what we said before regarding Yonasan. Who made the original Targum? It comes from Moshe Misinai, actually. The Torah was given Misinai together with the Targum. This is actually something that it says regarding Lashon Arami, that amongst all the Shivim Lashon Arami stands higher. Because the Torah was given together with the translation in Lashon Arami. Yeah. Could be. It could be. Okay, but the Gemara says this when you get Targum Onkelos. Sagt the Gemara, so now why is it that when they were targum the Torah, the law is daze, that the Eretz Yisrael did not tremble, while the Nevi'ah is daze, and when the Nevi'im were translated, so then the Eretz Yisrael did tremble. So the Gemara says, the Iraise mefarshem milsa, because the Torah, what's written in the Torah is already explained, is already known to us. Right? So in other words, the Chiddush of the Targum did not reveal any secrets that's not unknown to us. Even though, of course, there are certain things in the Torah that the Targum explains that are not clear in the Torah, but nevertheless, generally speaking, the Psukim in the Torah are written in a way that it's explained to us already. The Nevi, however, when it comes to the Nevi'im, Ikki milid mefarshin, there are those things that are clear there, V'ikki milid mistaman, and there are those things that are not clear, there are those things that are very hidden, and can't be explained really. And the Nevi'im, that is again, Yonasan ben Azil, when he was metargim this, he revealed a lot of secrets that were hidden in it. The Chsiv, and the Gemara brings over here an example where you find a pasuk in Navi that cannot be understood without a targum. This is a pasuk which goes on La'asad Lavai. On that day when Mashiach comes, Yigdal HaMispid Yerushalayim, there will be a huge hesped, a big eulogy in Yerushalayim. Kemispad hadadrimain bebikas megidain, like that hesped that there was of hadadrimain in bikas megidain. That's what the pasuk says. Now, what is this pasuk talking about? This is a pasuk that's sasum. V'amar Rav Yosef, ilmali targum medahaykra. If not for the translation of this pasuk, le'yadayna ma'kama, I would have no idea what it's saying. And here's the targum. V'yaymahu, in that day when Mashiach comes, yizgei mispede b'Yerushalayim. There'll be a tremendous hesped in Yerushalayim, and the Gemara here doesn't actually even mention what this hesped refers to, but there's a Gemara in Sukkah that says that this is either the hesped of the Yetzer Hara that's going to be slaughtered, or the hesped of Mashiach ben Yosef that's going to be killed in the war of Gog and Magog. And that hesped will be so great, kemisped the Achav bar Omri, like the hesped of Achav bar Omri, which was a king, one of the Yiddish kings, the Kotl Yasei Hadadrimain ben Tavrimain, which was killed by this individual of the name Hadadrimain ben Tavrimain. That's what the pasuk means, the hesped of Hadadrimain. And then when it mentions Bikas Megidain, which is a place, that's something else, as we'll see. So again, the first thing is the hesped of Achav, which happened Beramais Gilad, and then also Ukemispede the Yeshio Baramain, and like the hesped of the king Yeshio Baramain, the Kotl Yasei Pare Chagira, which Pare, that was a lame Pare, or Pare Nechei is called other times, Bikas Megiddah. He was killed in Bikas Megiddah. We had this in the Gemara in Tainus, where it said the story about this Pare Nechei that wanted to pass through Eretz Yisrael. Yeshio did not want to let him pass through Eretz Yisrael, and he was killed by him. So this pasuk here is giving two examples of a spadim that happened earlier, and similar to this, there will be also a hesped when Mashiach comes. The Gemara brings another pasuk here, which is in Daniel, which also a pasuk that Daniel, which was not translated, and you have the secrets in Daniel, and the Gemara explains this pasuk. So he says over there, Daniel says that I myself saw this as Amara, this revelation, this vision. The people that were with me, they did not see this vision. But nevertheless, a great fear fell upon them, and they ran away to hide. So who are those people that were with Daniel that were afraid and ran away? These were other Nevi'im from the latest Nevi'im, Chagis Charya Malachi. And now the Gemara says, Inu adifi minei, Chagis Charya Malachi have an advantage. They were in a certain way, they were on a higher level than Daniel. And V'iyu adif minayu. But in another way, Daniel is on a higher level than them. Why is this? Inu adifu minei, they are on a higher level than Daniel. The inu nevi, because they were prophets. Rashi says what this means. Prophets meaning they were prophets that were given nevuas to share with Yidden. If you look in Chagis Charya Malachi, there's nevuas that they had to give over to Yidden. V'iyu lav navi. Daniel never got any nevuah to give over to Klal Yisrael. If you look in the whole Sefer Daniel, it's all different nevuahs that he heard from the Eibishter, great secrets that the Eibishter tells him, but not any nevuah for Klal Yisrael. So in this sense, Chagis Charya Malachi are on a higher level. You adif minayu, but over here in this pasuk we see how Daniel was greater than them. The iu chaza, because he saw the vision. Ve'inu loy chaza, they did not see the vision. So if they did not see this vision, my time of isu, why did they get afraid? So the answer is, afagav de'inu loy chazu, although they themselves did not see the vision, mazalayu chazu, their mazel saw this vision. So this is quoted so often in Chassidus to explain this concept that a person's neshama below may not hear certain things, but the neshama l'mayla hears. Just like here it says that their neshama l'mayla, mazel refers to the shaydish of the neshama l'mayla, according to the pshat that Chassidus says. So to benegay to all those baskels that come out every day, even though you don't hear it literally here below, but the neshama l'mayla does hear and does see. Not this nevuah. This nevuah here, they did not see. Amar Ravine, so Ravine says, Shma mino, hai man de mivis. What this means is, not only regarding this case, but b'chlal, sometimes you see a person gets afraid and he doesn't know what's the source of this fear. Afagav di'iu lechazi, even if there's nothing that he himself saw here literally that he's afraid of, but mazal lechazi. Sometimes it's your mazel, your neshama l'mayla seeing certain things and that's what it's getting afraid of. So what should a person do in such a case when he gets afraid? Well, how does he get rid of this fear? Likri kriyishma. The eitzah is to say kriyishma. You say kriyishma, you accept the yoke of heaven, so that gets rid of all fear. And if he's in a place that is unclean and you're not allowed to say kriyishma there, linshuv miduchte, you should jump out of your place. Arba garmidi, 4 amas. You go out of your place 4 amas, so then that gets rid of the fear. V'iloi, if you can't jump out of your place 4 amas, leimachi, say the following saying. Iza de betafchi, the goats by the butcher, shmeina minoi, are fatter than me. And that will get rid of the fear. Okay? So some of Farshim say this refers to the fact that a person will be mevatel himself, humility you. And then whatever mazikim there are around you will get away from you. Say to yourself, the goats, you realize that you have a nefesh bahamas and how low you are, and then that will get away all harmful things that could come and cause you fear. Yeah. So this is the Gemara right here. Right here. Okay. The Gemara now goes back to what it started with. We brought the pasuk that it says in the Megillah regarding the celebration of Purim. So it says in the pasuk Medina, Medina, Ir v'ir. So now the Gemara is going to continue with that pasuk. Now that we said before Medina, Medina, Ir v'ir lidrasha. That we darshan what Medina. Medina refers to, there's the open cities, there's the cities with walls around it, and also we said it refers to the cities that are close to the other cities. But I think Gemara before darshan. So now, mishpacha, when it comes to the other words that it says in the pasuk, every family, and it says twice, every family, l'mayasa. What is this coming to darshan regarding Purim? Even Kainim and Leviim as well. They have to stop from their Aved in the Beis HaMikdash, Ubal and the Shmaya Mikra Megillah, and they come to listen to the Megillah. That's the Chiddush over here. So Taisus here, the first Taisus on the page, explains what this means. Why do they have to not do their Aveda to come here to Megillah? You can do the Aveda, and then hear the Megillah. You can do both. There's time for both. There should be. So Taisa says it doesn't mean that they're completely mevatel the Aveda. What it means is when it comes in the morning, usually the first thing you do is the Talmud Shal Shachar. You don't delay the carbon the Aveda. So, but over here, regarding Mikra Megillah, they will first go and do the Megillah, and then afterwards come back to do the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash. So the fact that they're delaying the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara calls that the bittul of the Aveda. Okay, now Taisus asks, no, so why Take? Why don't they do first the Aveda of the Talmud and then read the Megillah? Because, says Taisus, because they want to hear the Megillah in Shul together with a minyan, with the Tzibur. So what the Gemara here is saying is, to hear the Megillah with a Tzibur is more important than doing the Aveda, and therefore they delay the Aveda and first do the Mikra Megillah b'Tzibur. Damar Rav Yudah Amar Rav, Kainim b'Avedasam, Leviim b'Duchanim. You have the Kain doing their Aveda, and the Leviim that stand on the platforms and singing by the Karbanis. And V'Yisrael b'Mamadam, and the Yidden that would come and stand by the Karbanis, as we learned about this, that represent Klal Yisrael with the Karbanis. Kulan b'Vatlan Avedasam, they all stop from their Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash, Ubal Nishmaya Mikra Megillah, and they come to hear the Megillah. Tanya Namiyachi and Abraisi we learned as well. Kainim b'Avedasam, Leviim b'Duchanim, Yisrael b'Mamadam, Kulam b'Vatlam, Avedasam, Ubal Nishmaya Mikra Megillah. And Mikan Samchu Shal Beis Rebbe. From here, in the house of Rebbe, they relied also to say something else. Shemevatlan Talmud Torah, that you stop from learning, Ubal Nishmaya Mikra Megillah, and you come to hear the Megillah. Kavachaymer mi Aveda, and they learned this as a Kavachaymer from the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash. Uma Aveda shi chamura, if the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash, which is on a higher level, it's more important. Mevatlinon, you're mevatel this to hear the Megillah. Talmud Torah, which is not as important as the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash, like Kol Shekain. Most definitely, you can be mevatel Talmud Torah to come and hear the Megillah. So the Mefarshim say, what's the source for the fact that Talmud Torah is not as important as the Aveda? Because the Aveda, you could do the Aveda even on Shabbos. Even though the shechting and all these things they do is a chilul Shabbos, but you do the Aveda on Shabbos in the Beis HaMikdash. Whereas when it comes to learning Torah, when the Gemara says on Shabbos, when you learn, don't learn near a lamp, because you might come to tamper with the lamp while you're learning. So we see that when it comes to learning, you can't do something in a way to be Machal Shabbos. But when it comes to Aveda, you can. So the learning of Torah is not as great as the Aveda. So if the Aveda should be stopped from Mikra Megillah, for sure learning should be stopped from Mikra Megillah as well. One second. But the Gemara asks on this. V'Aveda chamura mitalmud Torah? Is it true that the Aveda is something, the Aveda in the Beis HaMikdash is more important than learning Torah? Here the Gemara is going to bring a whole story with Yeshua. And from this story with Yeshua, we're going to see that learning Torah is more important than the Aveda. So what happened there? V'Aksiv, there's a pasuk that says, V'Yi b'Yos Yeshua b'Yerichai, when Yeshua was in Yerichai. V'Yisayin, he raises up his eyes, V'Yaran, he sees V'nei Yeshayim b'Le Negdai, there's someone standing near him. What happens? V'Yishtachu, he bows down to him. So as we'll see here in the pasuk, this was a malach that came to him. So the Gemara interjects over here and asks, V'Heichi Aved Hachi. How did he do this? How did he bow down to this malach? V'Hamer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, Asal Adam Shitn Shalom L'Chaveiroi Balayla. If you have someone that comes towards you at night, it's dark, you can't really see who this is, you shouldn't give shalom to him, you shouldn't say hello to him at night. Why? Chashin Hashem Shedu. It could be a shindala that's coming and you just don't see who it is. So the Gemara answers, so how did Yeshua greet this person? Shani Asam, Da'am Alei, because this person that came to him said, Ki ani sar tzva Hashem. I'm the minister, the angel of Hashem. So it was a malach, and that's what he said. So therefore, he knew that it was a malach. So the Gemara says, well, how did he know it was a malach? V'dilma mishakri. Maybe the malach is lying to him. And it's, that's maybe the Shindalad is lying to him. He's saying I'm a malach, but he's really not a malach. So the Gemara answers, no, Gemiri delay mafke Shem Shemaim Lovatala. We know that a Shindala does not say Hashem's name in vain. So therefore, if he said that I'm the Sard of the Eibishter, it can't be a Shindala. So now, what did this Malach come and tell Yeshua? Amalai told Yeshua Emesh yesterday. This is referring to this was at night, and he's referring to that day right before that night. Bitaltem Tamid Shel Ben Arbaim. When you were out there fighting in the war, you didn't bring the carbon Tamid. They went out to fight, the Kainim went out as well, the Oren would go out to fight as well in the war, and they didn't bring the carbon Tamid. And what was the problem the Malach had with this? So Rashi explains that when they fought, they should have ended the battle a little bit earlier so that they can go bring the carbon tamid. It wasn't necessary for them to continue chasing their enemies all the way till the end, till the night. They could have came in earlier and brought the carbon tamid, and they didn't. And also he said to him, Va'achshav betaltem tamid Torah. And now at night, after you came back from the battle, so the battle is over, now you could sit and learn Torah. And they did not certainly learn Torah right now. So this was what the Malach came to tell him from the Eibishter, that there's a problem here with these two things. So Amaloi, Yeshua tells the Malach, Al Ezamem Basa. Which of these two is the real thing that you're coming to tell me? What's more important, that there is a taina against me? Amaloi, so the Malach says, Ata Basi. I'm coming for what the problem that there is now, that you're not learning Torah. Miyad, immediately when Yeshua heard this, Vayolan Yeshua balayla hu betoicha emek. So Vayolan would literally be translated as slept, but what the Gemara says is, what does this mean? Rab Yechanan Melamed, what this means is Shalon ba'umka shal halacha, that he learned in the depth of halacha. He learned Torah on a very deep level. So this is the story that we see by Yeshua. V'amar Rav Shmuel bar Unya. Rav Shmuel bar Unya said, based on this story, Gadol Talmud Torah Yoisem Akravas Tmidin. So I see over here that the learning of Torah is greater than being makriv, than the avodah of bringing the carbon tamid. Shenema, because the pasuk says atabasi, that the main problem that the Eibishter had with what happened here was the fact that they didn't learn Torah, and that was more of an issue than the fact that they didn't bring the carbon tamid. So how can we say that the avodah is greater than learning Torah? Here it says the opposite: learning Torah is greater than the avodah. So the Gemara answers, it depends. Lo kashi, it's not a question. Hod rabim v'hod yachid. It depends if it's a Talmud Torah of many learning together, the Rabbim, or it's a Talmud Torah of the Yachid. So the Rishonim actually say, when it says here in the Gemara Rabbim, it doesn't only mean many, because even before, when we were talking about being Mevatel Talmud Torah from Mikra Megillah, it was also talking about the Talmud Torah of Rabbim, because it was saying by the house of Rebbe, there would be Mevatel Torah. It's not talking only about a Yachid, it's talking about all the yeshiva students, or the children that were learning Torah over there. It's also talking about a Rabbim. So the Rishonim say that when it says here Rabbim means all. Rashi actually says Kol Yisrael Havu. Rabbim means when you're talking about all the Yidden that went out to battle then. So all the Yidden have to learn Torah. When you have Talmud Torah of Rabbim, that's stronger than the carbon Talmud. When it says Yachid, it means even if you have many, but it's not all of Klal Yisrael, that's called Yachid. The Gemara asks still again on this, Udu Yachid Kal, and when it comes to the Talmud Torah of a Yachid, is that less than the Avodah? But Vatnami learned in the Mishnah, it says as follows. Noshim, when it comes to women, this is talking over here about a person that passed away. So now Noshim, the women, b'mayid, if someone passed away and it's in a chalamayid, ma'anois means they cry together, avoloi mitapchais, but they're not allowed to bang their hands against their heart. These were all different ways of expressing their mourning. So mitapchais, which that's not allowed on chalamayid. Rabbi Shmuel says, if they're standing right in front of the person that passed away, mitapchais, they're also allowed to express their anguish by mitapchais, by banging their hands. B'Rosh Chodashim, on Rish Chodesh, b'Chanukah or b'Purim, ma'anois u'metapchais b'zeh u'b'zeh. Avoloi mekainonais. So they're allowed to cry together, they're allowed to metapchais as well, but not mekainonais. Mekainonais, Rashi says, is a bit different. Mekainonais is when one would cry and the other ones cry after her. Different ways. So mekainonais, which is a deeper level, a further level of expressing their anguish, that's not allowed. Now, V'Amar Rabbi Bar Huna said about this Mishnah, Ein Mayid B'fnei Talmud Chacham. When it's a Talmud Chacham that passes away, so the fact that it's Chalamayid does not prevent any level of mourning. They're allowed to mourn on any of these levels. And that's when we're talking about Chalamayid. And Kol Shekain, most definitely, Chanukah Upurim, or Chanukah and Purim as well, you can mourn Chanukah and Purim. And Taisus here explains, the main point that the Gemara means to say is that even on Purim, when it comes to reading the Megillah, they could push off the reading of the Megillah because they're mourning for this Talmud Chacham that passed away. So what do you see over here? That when it comes Purim, you push off reading the Megillah because of this person that passed away. So we see that Talmud Torah is even more important than reading the Megillah. Right? And before we said regarding the Avodah that you push off the Avodah for reading the Megillah. But here it seems like you put, for the covet of a Talmud Chacham, you push off the reading of the Megillah. So the Gemara says, Kavod Torah kamerit. You're bringing me a raya from the honor that you have to give for a Talmud Chacham that's learning Torah. That's different. Kavod Torah de Yachid Chomer. The kavod of the Torah, even of an individual, of one Talmud Chacham, that's more important. Talmud Torah de Yachid Kal. But the Talmud Torah of a Yachid, and again, as I said before, Yachid means if it's not all of Klal Yisrael, that's less important than the Avodah, and for sure less important than reading the Megillah. You mevatel Talmud Torah to go and hear the Megillah. So Rave, now based on all of this, Rave will come now. The Gemara is going to discuss many different scenarios here of being mevatel one thing for another. So Rave said, Pshitali, it's obvious to me, Avodah or Mikra Megillah. If you have a choice, you're doing the Avodah and you have to hear the Megillah, Mikra Megillah Adif. You have to go and hear the Megillah. Mid Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, as we brought before from Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. Talmud Torah or Mikra Megillah, if it's either learning Torah or Mikra Megillah Adif. Reading the Megillah is stronger. Mid the Samcha shel Beis Rabbi, like they learned out in the house of Rabbi, Talmud Torah again, Mid the Samcha shel Beis Rabbi, they learned out in the house of Rabbi that learning Torah is not as important as hearing the Megillah. Talmud Torah umeis mitzvah, when it comes to learning Torah or a meis mitzvah adif. The meis mitzvah is more important. Meditanya, as it says in the Braisa, mevatel Talmud Torah, you have to be mevatel from your learning loitzas meis, to go to by a levaya, to take out a meis and to bury him, ulachnosas kala, and also for a chasana, for achnosas kala. So therefore we see that this is more important than Mikra Megillah, than Talmud Torah, that is. Avodah umeis, if you have the Avodah to be done in the Beis HaMikdash, umeis mitzvah, that is, meis mitzvah adif. And meis mitzvah is more important. Where do we learn this out from? Mi v'la achaisai. We learned out from this pasuk that it says, la achaisai, which is the pasuk that it says by a nazir. What does it say by a nazir? A nazir is not allowed to become tameh to anybody, even to a relative. And the pasuk there says many different things. It says not to his father, le'aviv, le'imai, le'achav, and it also says la'achaisai. What do you learn out from la'achaisai? The Tanya, so we learned in Abraiso, la'achaisai ma tamud loimar, when it says that he's not a nazir, he's not allowed to become tummy to a sister. What is this pasuk teaching me? So harei shahaya haylich lishchet is pischai. If a person is going to shech the korban pesach, or v'lamul as benai, he's going to do a bris milah for his son. And on the way, Vishama Shemeis Loimeis, he hears that someone passed away, a relative of his. Yachal Yetame, I would think that he should become Tameh, and now he won't be able to do the Korban Pesach, or he won't be able to do the bris on the 8th day. Amrit Lo Yetame. No, he can't become Tameh. Yachal Kishem She'enim Metame La'achaisai Kach Enim Metame L'meis Mitzvah. So just like I learned from this pasuk that La'achaisai, that he can't become Tameh to a sister, even in a case when he has to do this mitzvah. So I would think that even for a meis mitzvah, which is someone, what's a meis mitzvah? Someone that no one else is going to bury. So even for a meis mitzvah, you can't become Tameh either. Talmud Laima La'achaisai. La'achaisai De'enim Metame. Only for your sister you're not allowed to be Metame, to skip these mitzvahs. Aval Metame L'meis Mitzvah. But for a meis mitzvah, you are allowed to become tameh. So we see that a meis mitzvah is more important. Rav asked the question, Mikra Megillah or meis mitzvah? If you have to read the Megillah, or there's a meis mitzvah, Hai minayu adif. Which one of them is more important? Mikra Megillah adif mishum pisum inisa. Is Mikra Megillah more important because that publicizes a miracle and therefore it's a very, very important thing? Or dilma meis mitzvah adif, or maybe burying a meis mitzvah is more important mishum kavod abrius, because of the honor of brius, of a person that's lying, that no one's burying him. So the Bayah, the Pashta, after he asked that, he himself answered the question. Meis mitzvah adif. Why? The Amamar Gadol Kavod Abrius. The honor of people is so great. Shadeiche es leisas shebetayre, that we even push off a leisas shebetayre. And Rashi brings this is regarding the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. Usually, if you see an Aveda, you have a mitzvah to take it and return it. But if you're a person that it's not for your, it's below your dignity to do this, to go to this place and pick it up and return it. Rashi here brings v'his alamta. Sometimes you're allowed to not return an Aveda. So I see that the honor of Briyais is a very, very great thing. Just in connection to what we learned before, that you are mevatel Torah for Mikra Megillah. So there's a famous word that the Rebbe said, that what does this mean? You mevatel Torah to hear Megillah. Megillah itself is also learning Torah, isn't it? You're hearing words of the Megillah. Elamai, the answer is, when you hear the words of the Megillah, you're just hearing the story. You're not learning on a deeper level. When you learn Torah and you're learning Be'iyun and you're thinking and you're understanding on a deeper level, so there's a bittul Torah involved. So from here you see that bittul Torah is not only in whether you're learning or not, but also in the quality, in the level, and the depth of your learning. There's also an inyan of bittul Torah. The loisa says loisucha lehisalem. Right before that it says loisucha lehisalem. That's the lav. The Gemara goes back to something we had before about the cities that have walls around it. When you have the walled cities, so anything that's close to these walled cities, and then he also said and anything that could be seen by it, nidn kekrach. It has the same halacha like a krach, a city with a wall that you read the Megillah on Tesvav. So now what is he saying? Tana, we learned in the Braise, Samuch, a city that's near, Afal Pishain and Nira, even if it can't be seen. Nira, a city that can be seen, Afal Pishain is Samuch, even if it's not close. So the Gemara explains this. A city that you could see, but it's not close. What is this speaking about? It's a city that's on a high mountain, so it's not so close. It's all the way up on the mountain, but because it's on a mountain, you could see it from the walled city. A city that's close, even though you can't see it. What is this speaking about? Rav Yirmiyah said, this is a city that's deep down in a valley, so therefore this is a city that cannot be seen, but it's still close enough. So those are the two scenarios where you read the Megillah there like the walled city. There's a machlokes in Mefarshim about this city that you could see, but is not close. That according to Rashi, this is even a city that's outside of the measurement of a mill, which was mentioned earlier in the Gemara. But according to others, I think the Ran, only if it's within a mill. If it's outside of a mill, you can't. So there's a different shara in the Gemara. Another thing Rabbi Shua ben Levi said about a city with a wall. Krach sheyoshav ulubesayif hukaf. A city that first was settled, and only afterwards they built the wall around it. Nidin kikfar, as the halacha, like a village or like an open city. My time, because the pasuk says, if you sell a house that's in a city, which what does it mean? Shehukaf ulubesayif yashav. Bais Moshav Ir Chaima means that you settled in a city that has a wall, meaning that first it has the wall and then you settled there. And not if you settled there first and then you put up the wall afterwards. So some say that this Gemara is being said regarding the halacha of selling a house in a city with a wall, where you could only redeem that house for a year. Afterwards, it's sold and you can't redeem it anymore. This is in the time when there was Yovel and Eretz Yisrael. Others say that this halacha also refers to the halacha of reading the Megillah. That reading the Megillah in a walled city on Tezvav is only if it's hukaf or lebesayif yashav. A city that does not have 10 batlanim, which refers to 10 people that are there learning Torah all day. Nidin kikfar, as the halacha like a village, like a city without a wall, and you don't read the Megillah there on the 15th. So the Gemara asks, what was he saying? This says later in a Mishnah. We're going to learn it on Daf Hey. Tanina, it says clearly, what's considered to be a large city. If there are 10 people that always sit there and learn Torah, pachas mikan, less than this, it's just like a village. So the Gemara answers, krach itztrechele. No, there is a chiddush that he's saying regarding this walled city, and his chiddush was as follows: Avagav de mikli leima alma. Even if there are people that come often to the city, it's a big city, and there are no 10 batlanim that live there constantly that learn Torah all the time. But there are people that are traveling through, and therefore from those people that come there, so you will have people that learn Torah there, but that's not enough. You still need asar batlanim of that city. One more piece. A city that the walls were destroyed. Yashav. That's what it seems like. It means it refers to the walls that were destroyed. And then Yashav, and people are settled there. Nidin kekrach. It's still considered to be like a city that has a wall around it. And you have to read the Megillah on the 15th. My charav. What does charav mean? That the walls were destroyed. So does this mean Yashav in, lo Yashav loy? If people went and settled there afterwards, which means that after the walls were built up again. That's what it means. The Gemara is saying, doesn't mean only after the walls were built up again. So then you read the Megillah there in the 15, but if not, you don't. But Vatani, we learned in the Braise, Rabbi Eliezer bar Yossi Yomer, Asher loy chayma, and the word loy is written with a vav and with an aleph, and we learn out from this, Afal pi she'ein loy achshav, a city that originally had a wall. And even if now it does not have a wall, so you still treat it like a city that has a wall. So therefore over here as well, you should read the Megillah on the 15th. Charav means shecharav me'asara batlonim. Charav means a city that does not have any of the 10 batlonim anymore in it that are learning Torah all the time. So regarding that, Rabbi Yeshua is saying that nevertheless it's nidin kekrach. But also regarding a city that had a wall in the beginning and it was destroyed, even if the wall was never put up again, it's treated like a city that has a wall around it, and therefore you read over there in the 15th.